Hi there, David here from daviddumaiaudio.com, and in this video I'll be doing a redesign from of the Dodogama from Monster Hunter World. So what I'll be doing in this video is going over the original game audio, the sounds that are in the actual game, and then we'll be going over my redesign. I'm going to be breaking down layer by layer what I used, how I mixed it, how I processed it, all of that. So if you're interested to see my workflow and how I design my sounds to help you create better sound effects, then stick around because we're going to be going over all of that in this video. Before we jump in though, like I said, my name is David. I'm a sound designer. I like to create sound effects. And if you are also a sound designer, I have a little gift for you. It is my 5 layering techniques guide. It's a short guide that I put together of different layering techniques that I use and I have learned from other professionals to help create better sound effects. So if you want to see that, links will be in the description. All right, let's get into our project. All right, so here we are inside of Reaper, and here's my project. And so what I like to do and how I like to start normally is to just play you a little, the clip from the original game, and then we'll come back and then we'll actually listen to the redesign. So let's have a listen here. This is going to be the audio from the original game. Here we go. All right, so that is the audio from the original game. Of course, just keep in mind here that there is like music and character talking and stuff like that, which I won't have. But yeah, so let's have a listen now. This is going to be my redesign. Here we go. Let's just have a listen one more time. All right, so that is the full redesign. So I'd like to break down this redesign in kind of 2 or 3 main parts, 3 main categories. One will be like the weapon sound effects from the character. So there's gonna be the sword sounds and then this the little like slingshot thing that she shoots. And then the other one will be the monster sounds. So focus on those. And then the kind of the miscellaneous like character sounds and things like that. So those are gonna be the 3 sections I wanna focus on and look at for this redesign. So just before we jump in though, let's have just a quick look at my setup here. It's really not well organized, but just so we kind of have a basic idea of what we're looking at in terms of my session here. So I kind of have things organized. If you look like, I actually started kind of in the middle here. So the first thing I started with was like the swing, the character swing. And then I went back to the beginning and then worked on the beginning swing here. So we have some character swings here. And you'll see here all of I tried to organize all the folders into categories and kind of label them. So if you're ever like looking at the video and you're not sure what we're looking at, you can always look here and hopefully see kind of what we are looking at in terms of sounds. So I have vocalizations, monster vocalizations, stuff like that. We have when it's shooting her little like slingshot thingy. And then some more monster stuff here. You can see here monster growls, monster stuff, then footsteps, character roll. And yeah, that's basically it. So just to have an idea of what we're looking at, like I said, it's not super well organized, and I kind of worked in like different chunks at a time when I was working on this. So yeah. So anyways, let's start at the beginning here. Let's start with the weapon sound effects because this is one of the things that was kind of unique about this sound design, at least for me, because I'd never really done weapons like this, because they were more kind of anime style sounds. So let's have a listen to some of these sounds, and then let's break it down. And I'll also talk a little bit about how I created them. So here is one of the hit sounds here. All right, so that is the sound. And if we listen to the original, right, you get this, it's not like a gore sound, and it's not like some sort of like, there is some impact sound, but there was this, it's kind of this anime inspired sound. And I didn't really know how to start. And I came up with this sound here. And I think it kind of worked. And if we look at how I created it here, I'm going to take everything off so we can hear how it is just on its own here. So that's the sound that I created. And I was like, okay, that's kind of close to what I wanted. And the way I created that, let me show you here. I actually did that inside of Faceplant. Let me see if I can find the right one here. I think it's this one here. All right, so yeah, so this is the patch that I created. So let's have a look at what I did here. So the sound that I used here was an impact sound, a design impact sound. And if I just play it by itself, so that's the sound, right? And the way that I created the sound, it was, I think it was actually, I was just like making noise with my mouth, like some mouth sounds, and then I kind of layered a bunch of them together and processed them a little bit, and then this is the sound that I got. Okay, so with this sound now, I put it inside of a sampler. I looped it around because I knew I needed it to be longer than just a short little impact sound. And what I did is I modulated the offset here with this sample and hold. So basically, I have a random LFO that's modulating the sample and hold. So it's always going to be a different value every time I hit a note on my keyboard. And then it's going to always choose a different place in the sample to start from. So it's never going to sound exactly the same. So I can play like multiple notes, and it's never going to sound exactly the same. And then the other part that I'm modulating, so that's this is like one group. I should probably have put this into a group like this, so it's a little bit more clear, like what I'm doing. So this is kind of, this is what it is. So this is one group, this is another group, and then this other group here is actually just doing the pan, modulating the pan here, so that the sound sounds like super wide. It's always going to be like this really wide sound. So that's what I'm doing here with this. So what I did is I just played that across my keyboard, multiple notes, until I got this cool sound. Once I had that, exported it out, and this is the sound that I used here for the impact sound. Like that. So once I had that though, I needed to do some processing on it, and let's have a listen to what I did for processing. So I'm gonna take everything off here. So let's start at the beginning here. First thing I did is I put on a M transformer. And I think I just move this little frequency shaping knob over to the side. It just makes it a little bit brighter. So if we listen, right, it just brightens it up a little bit. And I was kind of trying to match that brightness from the original game sound. Next, the main component of the sound that made the sound is I really needed some sort of tremolo, because if we listen to like the main sound, it sounds like the sword is like slashing through the monster, and it's you're hearing like these like rhythmic slashes across it. So if we listen, it sounds like right, but I didn't have that kind of feel in mind. There wasn't that rhythmic, or I wanted to make it a lot more rhythmic. So the way that I figured I could do that is with a tremolo. So without the tremolo, it sounds like this, and then with it on now, you're gonna hear what it sounds like. Right, you hear this kind of rhythm, this rhythmic. And if I do, let's see if I can make it more. So this is at -17. Let's see if I make it more, so make it more obvious what it's doing here. So that's what it's actually doing if I make it super obvious. But I didn't want it to be so in your face, like so rhythmic. So at -17, it was still kind of close. So I could probably do it. I could do it like that, but I thought -17 was pretty good in terms of having that rhythm going. Next, I just added some manipulator here, and this is just to bring down the pitch a little bit. After that, I had disperser. This is bringing out kind of these like lower mids around 237. After that, I had EQ, and this EQ is just brightening up the sound quite a bit. Right? And that's it. So that's how I created this sound. I thought it turned out pretty well, especially considering I was just using my mouth to design this. Ran it through a sampler and then put it on some effects. I really like that. So after that, once I had this main component of the sound done, it was just a matter of adding some impact sounds. So there's like 2 hits here. The first is right here when the character slashes. It kind of hits the monster like on the left and then on the right. So that's kind of what these 2 hits are doing here. Right, you get these just big impact sounds, and these are just kicks that I designed. And I'll put a card above on the top right if you are interested in seeing how I kind of design these. But basically, I grabbed a bunch of what I would do is I put start with a synth, and then I just put a bunch of effects on. I re-imported it back into my sampler. The output sound normally is just like a sine wave with a bunch of effects on them. Put it back into a sampler, and then I kind of go in and chop and then create these kicks out of these weird sounds. So that's how I created these impact sounds. Anyways, if you want to see more, it will be above in the cards. But with that, now I had these sounds here. And then here, I just added an extra swing sound just because I thought it was kind of missing that weapon swing. So that's what this is doing. It's more also just for like the character pulling back the sword sound rather than actually swinging the sword. So we play it all together now. Right, that is the sound right there. And that sound and that technique I actually used as well as in the beginning of the redesign. So let's have a look at that here because I did the exact same thing over here. All right, so let's have a listen to this one now. So this is going to be quite similar, so I'll kind of go through this relatively quickly here. So for here, I use 2 swing sounds. They're not even processed or anything. These are swing sounds that I had created from before. They were already kind of processed and stuff. And I, when I was creating like blocks, what I call blocks for like my sound designs, and when I just create a whole bunch of sounds in one category, I kind of put it all into a folder, and I had a bunch of these swing sounds, so I kind of could just drop them in here, and they kind of just matched exactly what I wanted. The thing that I did do though is I did a bit of using recenter just to pan the sound, especially for here. So you can see the sound is a bit on the left because the character's on the left. So when they're swinging, you're hearing that sword sound on the left-hand side. So that's why I had this on here. And as the character's swinging, it's going from the left to the right. Again, it's very minor, very minute, but it is helping a little bit. So maybe if I do this, right? So that's what that swing is. Nothing too complex there. All right, next is the actual impact sound, and let's have a listen here. So here I did the same thing as before. I had my 2 kicks here. Right, so the hit when the character hits the monster right here, and then I also had the hit here, the kick for when the sword hits the ground. So let's have a listen. Right, so you have these 2 big hits here. All right, for when the character hits the monster here, I actually had an electrical sound because there's like this electricity zap when the sword hits the monster. This is from one of my sound packs. It's my Magic sound pack. So I had put a few things on here. Let's have a listen with nothing on here. Right, it sounds super wide, which doesn't really make sense for a sound design like this. So what I did is I put on, so first thing I did is put on recenter, and I really made the sound quite narrow, as you can see here for the width. And I put it a little bit to the left, panned it to the left, because that's where the character is when they're hitting. So that's what it's doing right there. Right, so from super wide to super narrow. Works well. And then next, because it was still like super bright, I cut out a bit of the highs and also some of the bass because I just didn't need it, especially with these kicks that I had in here, these design like kick sounds, because those are the impacts. I didn't need that in the electrical portion of the sound, so that's what this EQ here is doing. So all together with these sounds now, oh, without this one. And then the other sound here, I had another electrical sound. This is more for when the sword slams down on the ground behind the player. And if we look here, yeah, I think I'm panning the sound a little bit down to the right here. Right, because I want it to feel like it's on the right because it is on the right of the screen. Right, and apart from that, that's pretty much it. I did a bit of volume automation here for this sound effect, this electricity explosion here. But that's pretty much it. So, yeah, so all 3 of these now, let's have a listen. All right, so again, with the swing, right, this is the sound that I got here. All right, so once I had these in place, I think that was basically it for the sword sounds. I think, yeah, that was it. So next, for the character weapons, there was the slingshot sound effect. So why don't we have a look at these? Yeah, let's have a look at this. So this is the slingshot sound effects. Let's have just a listen, and then we'll go layer by layer here. So this one was fun and interesting, and I used a few different interesting sounds in this one. So let's start right at the beginning here. So right at the top, there's the kind of load sound when the character loads the shot. All right, so for this reload, I'm just using recenter here just to position it. Again, I'm narrowing the sound pretty in to the center, and then I'm putting it a little bit to the left for the character because the character's on the left. So the first sound here that I have, this is a reload sound that I recorded from a plastic toy gun. So a little quite subtle. Same thing here. Another one. This was another toy gun I had. Right, so again, just these kind of like plasticky mechanical sounds. And here's another one. This one was more designed. But again, this was other mechanical sounds that I had created in one of my libraries, my sci-fi sound pack library. And yeah, so these are just like little mechanical sounds, and altogether it sounds like this now. Right, so they're all kind of occupying different frequencies, and you can see here I didn't even do any kind of processing on them. They're just really layered together so that they sound good together. And if you kind of zoom in here, what I tried to do is I tried to line up the transients here together so that they kind of match, and they match the image as well. So that's what's happening here. All right, so once I had this load sound, let's go over to the shot. So there's a few things happening here. So, and there's some cool layers in here. So let's have a listen to this one here. Okay, so this is the shot here. So let's have a listen to these. Again, here you're going to see this happening a lot. Recenter, again, panning everything in, make it super narrow, because if I don't, this is what it sounds like. Right, super wide, which doesn't make sense in a redesign. So again, putting it narrow and then panning it a little bit to the left, because that's where their character is shooting from. Okay, next, let's have a listen to this one here. So this is a swing sound from whatever I recorded in front of my microphone. I don't remember. But yeah, I swung something from my microphone, just a swing sound to show the character like flinging a thing forward. Next, another one. So together, they're kind of bouncing each other because you have some high frequencies and low frequencies here. Here I'm using track spacer just to get rid of any frequency masking happening in these two files. And next here. So what's interesting about this sound, again, this is a toy gun shooting sound again. So it's the same from the same library that I had created for these reload sounds, my sci-fi weapon pack sound. But this is one of the sounds when the gun is like shooting, and it just kind of, I thought it kind of worked well together with these other sounds. So if you just play it together, it kind of just has this really springy and rock character to it. So I thought I kind of liked it just like that. Right, so I was trying to get some more like transient heavy sounds, just so it's very like all these short sounds together that create this slingshot sound. So that is the fire, the load and the fire. And then when it actually hits the monster, this is when it gets really interesting. So let's see if I can find these here. Yeah, so there's two kind of main components to the monster impact sound. There is what I call like the glass layer, even though it wasn't actually glass, but let's have a listen to it. So that's like the glass layer. And then I also had some kick sounds. So let's have a listen to these here. Right, and then putting both of these together, I thought that kind of matched really well. I really liked it. I also had this other magic sound here. Yeah, another like glass breaking sound. So like when you put everything together, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it really works well together. Okay, and that is the sound. So this here is just from one of my magic packs, and this was like a glitch impact that I created. And if I look at what I did in terms of processing, I just pitched it down. I did some frequency down and some pitch shifting down. So let's take this off. So this was very bright. I wanted something a bit darker. So that's what that is doing there. Okay, next here, these sounds here. These are some metal impact sounds that I had. And these are all just from me hitting knives around my house, and then I just kind of layered them, and then I just dropped them in this rhythmic pattern. So the thing that made this, or what I found made this sequence really convincing and satisfying, is the rhythm that the explosions happen. So they're not all together; they're a bit separated, and I kind of made my own kind of pattern here, where you have like this first one here, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth. Right, so this is kind of the rhythm, and then once I had this rhythm laid out, then I kind of matched it with the kicks as well. So, right, so they're all kind of like that, and then so yeah, so these don't even have any processing on them. Like I said, these are just sword sounds that I just kind of layered together, and then just dropped them in here in a pattern. Right, what did I use here? I used transmutator. Oh yeah, so this is going to be interesting. So this one I used transmutator to go with. Yeah, so I'm using transmutator with this magic glass sound here and these metal sounds. And what it is doing, so if I take it off, so that's the sound of the two layers together. But then when I put the follower on, you kind of get this blend of the two together. And if I'm not mistaken, with the follower, I think it's following the transient of this one, or the sound of this one, so that it sounds a bit more transient heavy. Right? It sounds more like glass. Even the metal sounds here sound more clingy and glass-like. So that's what transmutator is doing there, because without it, it kind of sounds too metallic and too, I don't know, it doesn't really work. So that, anyways, that's how these two are layered together. Next, I had these kicks here, and these, let's have a listen to this. What these are from another one of my sound packs. This is from my like 8-bit sound pack that I created a while back. And I just had like these punch kick sounds, and yeah, there isn't much processing on them, I don't think. Let's have a look here. So for EQ, I'm removing some of the lows, probably because they're obviously too bassy. Let's have a listen. Yeah, they're way too bassy, and I just needed something that's more high frequency, not so much bass. So that's what that's doing there. And then recenter again, just making everything a bit more narrow. I don't even know if it's doing very much. Might not even need it. But yeah, that's basically it. So these are not even, no processing on them other than that. So yeah, so this sound I was pretty happy with in terms of the quality of the sound and how it turned out. It was really nice. So you kind of have this like glass breaking sound and then these like little pops. So that's how I created that sound. And once I had that, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, I think that was it for the character weapon sounds. So we had already went over the two sword sounds, and then this was like the slingshot sound. So yeah, those are the main monster sounds for this redesign. So next, why don't we have a look at all of the monster sounds, monster vocalizations, because there's quite a lot in this one. So why don't we go from left to right here, from the beginning all the way to the end. Let's go here. All right, so here is the first one. This is the monster in pain when it gets hit from the first sword hit here. So I was looking through my library for some monster pain sounds, and this is, again, from other sound packs that I created before. I think it's from my monster sound pack too. Anyways, so let's have a listen to these. I'll take off the processing I have because there's no processing individually on these. So I kind of drag them and drop them in here, and then I did a bit of processing to make it fit to the picture. So let's have a listen. All right, so it sounds very close to you, very in your face, and very dry. All right, and then for processing, I added some reverb here. This is ROM, just to put it in this big space because it's in this big like cavern. I put the high cut down a lot because I wanted the reverb to be dark. And even here, you'll see the reverb is not very much. It's 7.5. But this is kind of the main setting that I use, and you're going to see used throughout for all of the monster vocalization sounds. This is kind of around here. So normally my high cut is usually around 2.5. Mix is going to be low, and then decay is going to be around 3. And I click on this button, which I'm not sure what it does, but it sounded better to me. So you can hear it echoing in the distance. And that's what I was trying to go for. All right, next is, because I felt like it was bright and it was really close to the player, I didn't want that, so I did a bit of a high shelf here, just to bring it, to make it feel like because the monster's not even facing us, it's facing the other way. So that's what this shelf is doing. I wanted to make it feel like it's not facing us, it's a bit further away. So if I turn it off, right, sounds kind of close to us, in your face, and then with this on, it just feels like it's turned away from us. All right, so that's the first monster vocalization sound. Let's go for... All right, so there's the monster roar here when it's in the distance, and this one is interesting. This one's fun. So let's have a listen with these off here, and let's play... Did I have a bit of... Yeah, so I had quite a bit of processing on each of these, but let's have a listen here without the group processing on. That's what that sounds like. Let's take these off now. So it really doesn't make sense when we take everything off, but when we put everything back on, it does help and it makes sense. And let me show you why. So the first one here is this one. And this is just a monster roar I had. I put in some reverb because I wanted to make it feel like it was in a big space. It was kind of the airy part of the attack. And the way that I designed the monster sound to make it feel more realistic or better is there was two components. There was this air sound, and then there's this like lower growl sound. And the way that I blended them together was using transmutator. So with Transmutator, I can blend the two sounds together, put them through this plugin here, and then what this setting is, so there's different settings here. If you want to see like a video of a Transmutator, I made a video about it because it's pretty cool and it's great for like morphing and blending sounds together. So I'll put it above, but I'm using the transient setting here. And what it's doing is it's following the transients from one of the sounds. I think it's from the second sound that I chose. And then, so this sound is kind of following the transients from this second sound here. So they're kind of blending together with the transients. So they just mix together a lot more naturally. So if I take it off, and with on, right, you just get more of that airiness in there, and it sounds a little bit better. Okay, next I had a manipulator here. This I just brought down the pitch, the format a little bit here, 2x2, 2 semitones. Right, and that's basically it. Next here I added this one here, and this was just to elongate the sound because I felt like it was, this together was too short, and when we look at the picture, like the monster was still kind of yelling and crying out here, or doing its roar thing. So I needed a way to elongate it. So what I did is I copied this monster sound, I put it down here, and then I put on Transmutator and I blended it with this sound here. And what's cool about this one is I'm actually modulating the wheel here, so that I'm getting more of this sound and then less of these two sounds as the sound goes on. And also, like, the sounds kind of end here, so you don't actually hear it. So that's kind of why I was modulating the wheel here, so that it went to A, which is this sound here. So as the sound progresses, you're hearing a combination of these two sounds, and then it fades into only this one. So with it together now. And then I think the last thing I did here again was just manipulator again. Here I just brought it down by 6. Because if I had it down to 2, it would have been the exact same setting as this one, and it would have been just too obvious that it was the same sound. But when I brought it down by 6, it felt a bit more natural because it didn't sound exactly the same. All right, so once I had this sound in place, it sounded great. So then it was just a matter of putting it into place. So first thing I did was narrowing the width again and putting the sound a little bit to the left where the monster is. So that's what recenter is doing here. So let's turn these on here. All right, next I had an EQ just to cut down a bit of the highs, just because the monster is more distant. Finally, again, here you'll see a similar reverb setting that I had before, so around 2.5 for the high cut. Delays around 2.9 this time, and I had at just 3.9 for the mix. Right, so you still hear it ring out after the monster's done yelling. All right, so that is the monster roar here. And now here, I kind of did a similar thing for this second one. I think I just kind of copied and pasted the sounds over from this roar over to here when the monster is roaring here. And again, the way that I did that is I started with this main sound, which sounded good on its own, but I felt it was missing or lacking a bit of air, so that's why I added this one. And when you're blending two like monster sounds and growls together, it just feels a bit more organic and natural. At least it did for me for this section. Right, this is more of the airiness again to the sound. Again, I blended these two together with Transmutator. Again, I think these are the exact same settings, and I might have modulated the wheel. I think I did. Yeah, so I'm modulating the wheel here so that it starts off with just the growl here, and then it slowly moves into the airiness and then back into the growl. So the airiness is very subtle, and it's never like overtaking the sound, right? But it is present and it is there. So again, same settings here, same ROM reverb settings. Everything's the same, even manipulator is the same. The only thing I did here is I like it looks a little bit crazy, but for this file, I kind of like cut it multiple times so that I could elongate it and make it feel a bit more natural. So that's what I did here. So it looks kind of funny, but yeah, I just kind of crossfaded it a bunch of times just so it would make it longer. All right, so with that, I think those are the main like monster roars. There was a few other monster vocalizations that I had, especially for like down here. But these are like mostly like just kind of dragged and dropped in. So this is from, again, my monster pack, and I put down manipulator here just to drop it by 11. So if I have this off, it sounds a little bit too humanistic, and I wanted something a bit deeper. So with this on, and I have 45% mix, right, you get this lower pitch growl. Let's see what else. I had some monster breathing sound here. Let's have a listen to this. And this is the sound of the breathing right before he's about to do his long, big roar. So this is the sound. This is a low, like, grunt. This is a higher frequency hiss. So I mix these two together, and this is what we get. Again, here, I'm just using recenter just to kind of position it. Nothing special. So all together with these... So those are the monster sounds there. So, and that's pretty much it, I think, for the monster growls and monster vocalizations. So you have the two roars and then the breathing and stuff here. All right, for the last part that I would like to show and go over for this video here is, for the monster anyways, is when it's spitting out fire. So let's have a look at that here. All right, so for this one, I called it the lava attack. And this one was fun. I actually used some weird samples for this one. So, or samples I wouldn't have thought to use, but here we go. So again, just really quickly, recenter just to position the sound, nothing special. Okay, let's go over each of these one by one here. Let's play it all together. That's kind of like the shot when he's shooting out the lava, but then with all the other layers. Right, so that is the lava like shot. So yeah, so this here is just the spitting out the lava. And let's have a listen to what I did here. So this sound here is interesting because I think this was like some organic hits that I did, like a bunch of like toys that I hit around the house, and then I kind of layered them together, and this is the sound I got. So if I take off the processing on here, this is the sound. Right, that's the sound file. It's just like a bunch of toys and things that I layered together and put into a file. But with manipulator on here, I was able to bring it down by 9, and it just sounds like a nice, like a, I don't know. I felt like it worked. Like it wasn't noticeable that it was toys or anything like that anymore, and it just had this nice flow to it in terms of like spitting out something. It especially had that growling quality to it. So that's why I used that in here. Next, I had this layer here. Let's take off the processing. And this, I think, was just a whoosh. It was like this sci-fi whoosh sound that I had. So I took the same sound twice, duplicated it, and then crossfaded it in a really weird way. But basically, just to kind of match the image. And then I just did some processing on it. So let's have a listen here. First one was manipulator here, and it doesn't look like I'm even doing anything. Yeah, I don't know why it's on there. Recenter, just to put in the stereo field, and then this one. Just taking off some of the highs because it's a bit bright. Together. Okay, so that is the sound so far. Then I decided to add this spell sound. So this is from my spell pack. It sounds like this. So if I take it all the way out here, that is the sound. So all together with these 3 layers, now we have this. Right? It's just kind of this lava puke, which I called here lava barf sound. Okay, so that is the layers here for the shooting. After that, we had these layers here, and this was more like the fire layers. And actually, I only used 2 here. So the first one was this one here. And this is a fireball sound that I created. If you want to see a video about it, I'll put it in the cards above. But basically, I used some rain recordings to create this and added some distortion and things like that to create the sound. But yeah, so let's go over how. So that's the fireball sound part. is very bright and yeah, a little too fiery rather than lava. So I did some processing here on here. So let's have a listen. Track spacer, so this is probably just a mask with this, or maybe even with the barf, I don't remember. Next we have transformer here, M transformer, and I'm using demonizer preset here. So it just makes it really deep. So it just pitches it down quite a bit. So that's the sound now. Next, recenter again, just to make it really narrow, and a bit of distortion here. So that is that sound. Next here, I had, this is a sound I just kind of dragged into here. Let's have a listen. I wanted to get some sort of like gargling sound or like water bubbling sound to have that lava sound, that lava quality. So that's what this layer here, that was my intention with this layer. I don't know if it actually came across or if I even needed it, but that's what this layer was for. So it's this like glass, pouring glass thing, or like an ice cube in a glass. This is from a library. I didn't actually record this one. Right, and then with the processing on here, some manipulator, quite aggressive. I brought format down by 24, harmonic 4, alternator 3. Right, so it's quite aggressive. Really changes the sound. But it's a lot more gargly this time. I removed some of the highs. Recenter just to position it, narrow the field again. And then here with pitch shifter, I brought it down 11 semitones. So altogether. So if I didn't have it, it's okay. I'm with it. Yeah, it's barely noticeable. It's just like a touch of detail here, I guess. All right, let's have a listen to this one. This was a ice cracking sound from my Magic Pack. I just wanted to have some sort of fizzing sound or crackling sound. I had a hard time finding something, and then I decided to stick with just this ice sound because altogether, like with the other sounds, it kind of just layered fine. Right, it kind of sounds like this fire crackling sound with these other layers. If it was by itself, it kind of sounds funny, but with the other ones, I thought it worked okay. So that is the sound. So altogether now with this, so that is the fire barf sound, for lack of a better word. All right, so I think that is it for the monster sounds. So let's go over some of the character sounds now. Just some final details. Oh, actually, there was one more interesting monster sound, which were the footsteps. And these were kind of interesting because a lot of these are just like design kicks that I had from before. So they're here. Let's have a listen. And you'll notice that they sound kind of weird, especially here. You'll hear like a big dip. And the reason for that is because I am sidechaining the weapon sounds into the footsteps because I don't want to hear the footsteps when I'm hearing the weapon sounds here from the character because that's more important because a lot closer to the player. So that's what's happening here. So if you see here, I have track spacer on here and I have a whole bunch of sounds coming into here from the character sounds because I always want that to be at the forefront. Apart from that though, like these are just kick sounds. So if I take everything off, right, so that's what it sounds like. It's just a whole weird bunch of kick sounds that I designed. And then what I did is, let's have a listen here. Let's have a look. Let's put this on first. So cutting out some of the highs. And you can see here I'm modulating it over time as the monster is getting further away. I want less highs. A bit of gain here. Just bringing it down. Here the reverb, again, same thing here, 2.5, well, it's 2.6 this time. 3.2 in terms of reverb tail, and the mix at 14.5. Right, so it just feels like it's in this big cavern. Next here, I had subsynth. This to add some of that low weight to the sound. So without it, it sounded kind of okay. Like you get a lot of that character of the like footsteps walking around, but then with this on, you get a lot of that sub, and it just kind of makes the monster so much more bigger now. Right? It just really works really well right there. Track spacer again, like I mentioned before, for the character. Recenter here just to position the sound. And what's interesting here is I'm modulating the width over time. Because as the monster is getting further away from the player and from the character, suddenly I wanted the footsteps to feel like they were more in this big environment, in this big cave. So that's why I'm increasing the width. So at first the monster's close to us, so it's very narrow. And then as it's getting further away, I'm making it a lot wider. And then finally here, gain again, just to balance out and mix the sound. Okay, so that is the monster footsteps. So if I play it in context, right, you can hear right where the monster, where you hear like a duck here, you can hear the weapon swings and the weapon hit. All right, but those are the monster footsteps. And I don't think I did any processing on these. Yeah, they're just kicks that I designed, and I just drag them and drop them right into here, just like that. All right, let's go over some of the character sounds. So I think for the character sounds, it was mostly like the rolls here, which were interesting. So the character rolling sounds like this. So it's very subtle, and it's more like Foley work, and I'm not like a Foley artist, so what I'm doing here was not, I don't think it was like, I'm sure other designers could do this a lot more detailed than I did here. But I did want to put something because it was really obvious that there was nothing there in the scene. So let's go over how I created this and what I used to create these roll sounds. So the first thing was a body fall. This is from a library that I had. So I just searched for like a body fall just to get that going. Here's another body fall, and together. I really, I tried to like make them distance them out a bit so they had kind of this rhythm, so that it's not all like an impact sound. It was so you can feels like the character is actually rolling, right? And then after that, I had this sound here. So these sounds actually used for each roll here. And what this is some mechanical sounds from a toy gun that I had again. And what I did is I did some M transformer. I did some frequency shifting down and manipulator again, pitch shifting this down. Yeah, so I'm pitch shifting this down, or the format down over time. So I'm automating this. And the reason for that is because it was more to get like these like clicking sounds or from like the player's sword. So I wanted to have some sort of sounds for the sword, not just for the player turning and rolling, but also the sword. So that's what this is doing there. I had another one like here. Again, this is just some mechanical sounds, reload sounds from my weapon pack, my sci-fi weapon pack that I recently created. So yeah, and I had, again, another one here. And another one here. Right, so these were meant to be more for like the sword and her armor and stuff like that. So that's what those are doing there. After that, I had another one here. This one is like very subtle. So if I play it all together now. Right, that's what we have here. And I don't know if there's much processing going on in here other than that. I have a bit of EQ here just to shape the sound. It's very, very subtle. I don't even know if it's necessary to be in there, but it's in there. Right, same thing here. Right, so I was really going for some sort of like rhythmic roll. Like I wanted the sounds to be rhythmic, so it felt like a roll and not just like somebody falling flat on the ground or something like that. So that's why they're kind of rhythmic, and you get these clicky sounds for the weapons and the armor. So again, probably not the best. I'm sure other people could do a lot better, but that is what I had on here. All right, so I think that's it. I think I had actually one more sound here that I could go over, and this was a character sound that I think I skipped over here. So one of them is these swing sounds here. So for this big character swing sound, these are just different sounds, swing sounds that I had recorded, layered, and then I just pitched them down, and then I kind of dropped them in here. So you have this first one here. And again, here I'm just using recenter. And then here, another one. And here, another one. And I'm probably cutting out some of the lows because I don't need it because the other twos are covering that frequency part of the frequency spectrum. Here, track spacer, just to get rid of some frequency masking happening between these two sounds because they're more on the bassy side. So all together. And you can see here, I'm trying to not have them so on top of each other. I want to space them out a little bit so that they don't sound so mechanical. Right, so that is the swing sound there. Here I had another swing sound, which is probably similar. Again, they're kind of spaced out a little bit. You have this first one, then this one, then this one. Right, and different frequencies. So I'm starting up high, mid, low, and they're kind of falling in that order. Right, once I had that, then it was just a matter of making the impact. And the impact, again, you'll notice I have this, which one here? This one. So this is a design sound that I created, which was a slash impact sound using medals, kicks, swings, and some slash sounds. And I kind of just dragged and dropped this in here. So that was the core of the sound, and then I had this electrical sound. And this is the same file that I created when I was doing the character, or like the weapon slash for the monster. It's the same technique here. It might have even been the same file. I just brought it in here to have that sound continuation across the game. So that is the sound there. All right, so I think that's it. Why don't we have a listen one more time? Let's have a listen again to the game audio. And now that we've gone over to each, all of the different layers of the sound, the monster sounds, the weapon character sounds, and the foley and everything, let's see if we can have a listen and see if you can pick out different layers and just be more attuned to the different layers and sounds that I use in this sound design so that you can just be more attentive to what's happening on screen there. So let's have a listen. This is going to be the original game audio, and then we're going to switch to the redesign. All right, now let's have a listen to the redesign. All right, so that is everything for this video. I hope you found it useful and valuable, and just seeing my process, the sounds that I use, the tools that I use, the software I use, processing them, layering them, all of that. So I hope you found it useful and valuable. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I always read everything and do my best to answer them. And just a reminder to grab that free guide, the 5 layering techniques guide for creating sound effects. If you are a beginner or just starting out in sound design and you want to learn some different techniques for creating sound effects, that'll help you out. So links will be in the description. All right, so that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.